The moment your paycheck lands in your bank account, something interesting happens inside your brain. Before you've even opened the app to check the balance, you've already started spending it. Not physically, not yet, but mentally. Your brain starts running calculations on that new thing you've been wanting. The dinner out you've been putting off, the random purchase you've been telling yourself you'll make once you get paid. It happens almost instantly, and for most people, that mental spending is where financial progress quietly dies every single month. But what if that exact moment, right when the deposit notification hits your phone, could actually be the turning point that puts you ahead of the majority of people financially? Not through some complicated investment strategy or a side hustles that eats your weekends, just a simple, repeatable routine that you run every single time money comes in. That's what we're talking about today. Here's a truth that most people don't want to sit with. The average person genuinely has no idea what happens to their money after payday. They know the rent gets covered somehow. Food ends up in the fridge. Subscriptions keep renewing on their own. But beyond that, it's just a blur of small purchases and impulse decisions and a bank balance that somehow always seems lower than it should be by the time the next paycheck rolls around. These aren't bad people or irresponsible people. They're just people who never built a system, so their money makes its own decisions without them. The people who actually end up in a strong financial position do something fundamentally different. They don't just earn money, they manage it with intention every single time it arrives. And the difference between those two approaches, reacting to your paycheck versus having a plan for it, is often the entire gap between building real wealth and spending your life wondering where it all went. There's one idea that sits at the core of all of this, and it reframes how you think about the money coming into your account. Your paycheck isn't just compensation for the hours you put in, it's the raw material your financial future is built from. Every dollar that hits your account is a decision waiting to be made, and if you don't make that decision deliberately, your brain will make it for you. And it will almost always prioritize whatever feels good right now over what's actually good for you long term. Most people run their finances in the worst possible order. They pay what they have to, buy what they want, and then try to save whatever happens to be left over at the end of the month. The problem is there's never anything left over. There's never going to be anything left over with that approach because spending will always expand to fill whatever's available. It's not a willpower problem, it's a system problem. If you leave saving for last, saving never happens. The people who build wealth flip that order entirely. They decide in advance how much goes toward their future before a single discretionary dollar gets spent. They treat saving and investing not as an afterthought, but as the first bill that gets paid the moment money comes in. And this approach works regardless of income level, which is the part most people miss. Someone earning $50,000 a year who consistently sets aside 10% will retire in a far better position than someone earning twice that who spends every cent. The system matters more than the salary. So here's how that system actually works, broken down into the steps you run every single time you get paid. The first thing you do before anything else is figure out exactly what percentage of your take-home pay goes toward genuine necessities. Not what you wish the number was, not a rough estimate, the actual number. True necessities are housing, real food, basic transportation to get to work, core utilities, and healthcare. That's the list. It does not include the streaming services you cycle through, the gym membership collecting dust, the premium cable package, or the daily coffee stop that somehow became a non-negotiable part of the morning. Those things might feel necessary, and that feeling is exactly the problem. The mistake almost everyone makes here is convincing themselves that their wants are needs. The car payment on a vehicle they absolutely didn't need becomes essential transportation. The daily coffee run becomes fuel for productivity. The weekly dinners out become necessary social connection. If you're spending more than 60% of your take-home pay on things that are genuinely actually necessary for survival, you are either living in a market that's too expensive for your income right now, or you're relabeling luxuries as necessities because it's more comfortable than admitting you're spending too much on things you enjoy. Take someone bringing home around $4,700 a month after taxes. If their rent is $1,800, their car payment is $400, and their grocery bill runs $500, they're at $2,700 in necessary expenses, which is about 57% of take home. That's a reasonable place to be. But that same person often feels broke because on top of those actual necessities, they're layering in subscriptions, food delivery, daily purchases, and 100 small decisions that never feel significant individually, but quietly add up to several $100s a month. Knowing your real necessity number tells you exactly how much is left for everything else. And everything else is where wealth either gets built or doesn't. Before you spend a single dollar on anything optional, the second thing you do is confirm every debt payment you owe is current. Not paid off, just current. This is about protecting your credit score and making sure late fees aren't quietly draining your account. Your credit score functions like a financial reputation, and it touches more of your life than most people realize. It shapes the interest rate on a mortgage, whether you can get a decent car loan, sometimes even whether a landlord approves your application or an employer offers you the job. Here's something that trips people up about credit. The margin between a great score and a damaging one is thinner than it looks. Making payments on time consistently keeps your score healthy. One missed payment can tank it in a way that takes months or years to undo. The rules are not complicated. Pay the minimum on every account on time every single month, and your score takes care of itself over time. It's not exciting, but it's the foundation everything else gets built on. Once your obligations are covered, the third piece of the routine is building and protecting your emergency fund. Everyone knows they should have one. Almost nobody actually builds one until after they've already needed it and didn't have it. An emergency fund is a specific amount of money, 3 to 6 months of your essential living expenses sitting in a savings account you can access immediately, not invested in the market where it could lose value right before you need it, not locked in a certificate of deposit with a penalty for early withdrawal, just sitting there, liquid, boring, and ready. If your monthly necessities run around $2,700, your emergency fund target is somewhere between $8,000 and $16,000. That number can feel overwhelming when you're starting from zero, but you're not building it in a single transaction. You're adding to it consistently over time until it's there. What people get wrong about emergency funds is treating them like investment accounts. They want the money to be earning something meaningful, so they put it somewhere that either carries risk or restricts access. Then the actual emergency arrives and either the balance is lower than when they deposited it, or they're facing a penalty to get it out. The entire point of this money is that it's available without friction when you need it. A high-yield savings account insured by the federal government is exactly where it belongs. You're not trying to grow this money. You're trying to make sure it's there. Once that fund is in place, something genuinely shifts. You stop living in financial survival mode and start operating with a real cushion beneath you. You show up differently at work because the threat of a single bad month doesn't feel catastrophic anymore. That psychological shift is worth something that doesn't show up in the numbers. With the safety net established, the fourth piece is investing for the long term. And this is where the math starts working in your favor in a way that's genuinely hard to believe until you see it. If your employer offers any kind of retirement match, capturing that match is the single highest priority investment available to you. There is no other investment on earth that guarantees an immediate 100% return. But that's exactly what an employer match is. If your company matches 3% of your salary and you contribute that 3%, your employer deposits an equal amount. You doubled your money before the market did anything at all. Beyond the match, the goal is to get to roughly 10% of your gross income going into retirement accounts. That might feel like a stretch depending on where you are right now, but the timing of when you start matters enormously. Someone who invests $300 a month beginning at 25 earning a fairly typical average market return, can expect to cross the $1 million mark by the time they reach 65. Someone who waits until 35 to start the exact same contribution ends up with roughly $400,000 instead. That 10-year gap costs around $600,000. The math on starting early is almost unfair, which is why starting right now with whatever you can actually manage beats waiting until the conditions feel perfect. The other thing that kills people at this stage is overthinking. They spend so much time reading about investment strategies, comparing fund options, and analyzing the perfect allocation that they never actually put money in. For the vast majority of people building long-term wealth, a simple diversified index fund is completely adequate. You do not need to pick individual stocks. You do not need to time market cycles. You need to invest consistently and then let time do most of the work. The fifth and final piece of the routine is attacking any remaining debt outside of your mortgage. This is the part that tends to carry the most emotional weight because debt usually represents something, a period of financial stress, decisions you make differently now, or circumstances that weren't entirely in your control. But the mechanics of paying it off are straightforward regardless of how it got there. Two approaches work. One is mathematically optimal and one is psychologically optimal. And for most people, the psychological one wins in the long run. The mathematically optimal approach targets your highest interest rate debt first, which minimizes the total interest you pay over time. The psychologically optimal approach targets your smallest balance first, regardless of interest rate, because eliminating a debt entirely and watching that monthly payment disappear gives you momentum to keep going. Neither approach is wrong. Both of them produce results if you actually follow them consistently. The one you'll stick with is the right one for you. What doesn't work is switching back and forth between strategies or telling yourself you'll deal with the debt once things settle down, or making minimum payments indefinitely and hoping the balance somehow shrinks. Pick a method, run it every month, and don't stop until the non-mortgage debt is gone. That's the whole routine. Know your real necessity percentage and be honest about what belongs on that list. Keep every debt payment current to protect your credit. Build a 3 to 6 month emergency fund in a liquid, accessible account. Capture your employer match and invest consistently for the long term. Pay down remaining debt with a strategy you'll actually follow through on. None of this is complicated. None of it requires a finance degree or a high income or perfect discipline. It just requires running the same routine every single time money comes in, instead of letting your brain make all the decisions on its own. Do that consistently, and the financial distance between where you are now and where you want to be starts closing faster than you'd expect.